is the money that we pay agents an expense of a brokerage? Isn't that one of the largest amounts of money that we pay out? And then we have the other fixed expenses. I want to talk to you. I'll mention, this is one of my side trips. Fixed expenses and variable expenses. Fixed expenses are the expenses that you have every month whether you make a deal or not. That is your business risk. Now what do I mean when I say business risk? Because whatever those checks are that you have to write every 30 days, and it comes around quicker than 30 days. It's like 10 days, they come back up. I mean, some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you are going, he's crazy. And some of you are looking at me like, I don't understand this guy. Oh, you're in the South, right? I mean, come on. You know Southern. I mean, on my CCIM profile, I put, they said, what languages? I said, 2, English and Southern. Let me tell you a little story quick about accents. Went to Europe with a friend of mine after we graduated from college. We backpacked for 3.5 months. Had a blast. First thing that happened when we got off the plane in London, met the most beautiful English women I'd ever seen in my life. Of course, at that age, it didn't really much matter. One of them looked at us. She said, I do say, one of the most lovely things I think there is a Southern accent. I looked her dead in the eye and I said, is that right? Clayton looked over at me and said, where'd that come from? I said, shut up, this could be good. Now we look at that and we look at the income statement and we look and figure out profit and loss, and that's what our banker's interested in. If I loan these people money, can they pay the bill back? Can they pay me? Of course, now they want to know all other kind of things, but they don't even really know what all they want to know yet. They just get a new list every day. I used to be on a bank board until we got bought by foreigners. And then they dissolved the board. But on that bank board, I learned a lot because I'm in a resort town. And this is hilarious because our resort town, our agents make their money mainly from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And from Labor Day to Memorial Day, they don't make a whole lot of money. But what was really funny is to see all the new cars that would show up in August. And then what was even funnier would be all the 90-day notes that would show up in November. One time my bank president said, Randy, I want to talk to you about something. I said, yeah. And he's, talking about, he said, the real estate people are really kind of funny people. I said, well, how's that? He said, you know that when they get really cash flush, he said, they just spend it like crazy. And then said, in the middle of the winter, they're back in here on 90-day notes. I said, yeah. They don't think beyond the time frame. Now, what I want you to do is to start thinking beyond the time frame of your money. Because we can be flush with cash, and that's one thing about an income statement. We can look at the checkbook, and we can have money in that account. And so we're feeling pretty good, aren't we? We're thinking we have money. Money is very helpful in this world. Extremely helpful if you're running a business. And very good to keep the lights on, power on, copier running, all of those things. Now, if we have money in the account, we can go out and buy things. However, there are other needs throughout the year. How many of you actually do a budget? No, I mean, you don't have to confess, but I mean, it's one of those things where you need to have a mental picture of what's happening within your framework of cash flow. Because you will be cash flush at one point. And another thing is, lots of money will cover a lot of mistakes. So if you make a lot of money as an agent, you can mess up many times and you're still okay. But when times get tough, that's when it gets a little bit rougher. Because it's not coming in as good as it was, and then the money's still going out. And guess what? We got fat and happy during the good times. I recommend that you review your expenses constantly, not just during the times when they get bad. A lot of people get serious about expenses in the bad times. Guess what? One of the most important things I learned from a multimillionaire that showed up at the first transaction that I did in a beat-up Chevy station wagon and a polyester suit that looked like he'd chased a rabbit through a briar patch, you would not have ever known that he was a millionaire. I wrote up the offer thinking that this man will never, ever buy this piece of property. I was just being polite at that point because that's the way my mom and dad raised me. You treat everybody with respect. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, all right, let's get this done. he's going to make an offer. It's not going to be good. He can't do it. He can't qualify. He can't do this, that, and the other. And sure enough, he looked at me and he said, yeah, I want to make him an offer. I said, how much? He said, $500,000. I said, okay. I'm thinking, yeah, that'd be really good if this was real. I'm writing this thing up, and I said, and you want to make that contingent upon financing? He said, no, cash. I'm thinking, oh, it's making my day. And I said, in closing, he said, 2 weeks. Well, I'm going to find out pretty quick whether this is real or not. I got to know this man later, did a lot of deals with him. He actually owned multiple Chevron locations. He owned the real estate underneath the Chevron locations. He ground leased them. He owned the bulk plant. He was a millionaire. And I got to be friends with him because I actually started my first office building in the same part of Birmingham that he did. And I never had people come to my office because it was free rent. And my parents owned that building, and I owned part of it, and it was free rent. And I was a commercial guy, and I would go to other people's offices. He came over there one day and met me out front in the sidewalk, and I was embarrassed, I didn't have this plush office. He walked up, and he said, I knew it. I knew it. I said, you knew what? I knew you were over here. And I'm just like, okay, that's fine, whatever. He looked at me, he said, you see that building right there? I said, yes, sir. He said, that was my first office building. I'm like, yes, there is hope. He's not going to just throw me away. But he looked at me and he said, Randy, I don't want you to ever forget this. You will make your money on the nickels and dimes. I thought about that. The more we get the cash flow coming, the more liberal we get with letting it go out, don't we? I mean, we do this, we do that, we add this, we add that, and then when the spigot gets tightened down, we've got too much flowing out. That's why I recommend that you watch those nickels and dimes every day of the year. Now, do it within reason. Do it within your comfort zone. Because the business risk is the fixed cost that you have to write that check for every month. The lower you keep your fixed cost, what? The lower your risk. Because if you can, and that's the way I go into some partnerships with some guys, because I've been in this business a little while. How many of you were in it in the late 80s with the savings and loans? You remember those days, huh? Yeah. Well, when I go into a partnership with people, here's the way we go into it. I look at them, you want to be a partner? I said, here's how much we're going to borrow. Here's how much the payment's going to be if everything goes south. And why everybody says go south, I don't know, because I love for people to come down to Gulf Shores. And that's about as south as you can get in Alabama. But, and if we divide this thing up 3 ways and you're ready to write a check for it, if nobody pays us anything and we don't sell a unit, will you do that? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, they're in. If the answer is no, I've been there. I even had one guy that said yes, and the answer really ended up being no. But that's okay. We'll work through those kind of things. But that's the business risk. Can you write that check every month for what you're doing to stay in business? And that's fixed cost. Variable cost, and I'm going to get through this because it's important on how we work out what we do within our company. I don't care what plan you have. Everything will work if you structure it properly. You can have, in Realty, I'm going to confess to you, Realty Executives is a great company, and our original concept was a 100% company. Now, we've evolved from some of that back to what I grew up in to start with, were some basic, very traditional companies with very traditional splits where all of the risk was on the broker, but the splits were very low. You follow me? Now, what happened is the 100% guys came along, and they came up with this new mousetrap. A lot of the agents like it that are good producers. Boom, they jump on board. Now, what did the traditional guys do? They got nervous because they were losing agents over here to this 100% company, but what they were losing really were real good producing agents. So what ended up happening over here on the traditional companies, they started losing a lot of cash flow. So they started making some adjustments. And then boom, over here, they started making the adjustments, so the competitive advantage wasn't quite the same. So there became a blended commission arrangements, and I want to repeat what I said earlier. I don't care how you do it. I just want you to mentally know that you're going to make money or lose money at what you're doing. You cannot set your compensation schedules based upon a competitor. You can't do that.